Hey gardeners, Amy here. Welcome to my garden. Today I want to talk about this really fun drought-tolerant plant right here. This is called Eryngium or sea holly. Eryngium is a genus of plants in the Apiaceae family, which is a little bit surprising to me because Apiaceae is the carrot or celery family, and it's usually distinguished by a cluster of flowers in like a flat or a dome shape that's called an umbel. Well, that's not what this is as far as flower shape. This is more of a thistle-like dome, but thistles are in the Asteraceae family, so I kind of thought that that's where this one would be classified, but it's not. The Eryngium genus has several different species in it. I'm going to talk about a few of the ones that are the most common here in the States. And I'll talk about common names, native areas, USDA zone, and all that with each species. But the things that most sea hollies have in common are a whole lot of spiny bits, they're very drought tolerant, and they all have a very long bloom time and are attractive to pollinators. So they're very valuable in a pollinator garden. Some are native to the United States, some are native elsewhere, but for the most part, they are all valuable additions to a pollinator garden. So look up your local area as far as native plants, see if you can find a native one. But if you can't find a native one, you could go ahead and get a European variety. It shouldn't be harmful. It'll still be helpful in your garden. The common name is typically some version of sea holly. It has no relation to hollies whatsoever. That's in the genus Ilex. Eryngiums are herbs that can be either annual or perennial, depending on the species, usually with hairless and usually spiny leaves. The flowers are still considered umbels, and they are dome-shaped, usually of a steely blue or white flowers. They have whorls of spiny basal bracts. European and Asian species tend to be native to dry, rocky, and coastal areas, and the American species are often native to damp grasslands. Let's dive into the specific species that I've looked up for this video. Eryngium planum. Common names are blue eryngio, blue sea holly, flat sea holly, or sea holly. Eryngium planum is a perennial in the carrot family Apiaceae. It grows in stiff, erect clumps 1 to 3 feet tall and 1 to 2 feet wide, and provides interest in the landscape with its unusual spiky flower heads that resemble a thistle. The USDA hardiness zone is 5A through 9B, and its region of origin is east to Central Europe to Mongolia and Western Himalayas. The name Eryngium is actually a Greek reference to the spiny nature of this genus of plants, but this species is not spiny. The species name planum means flat and refers to the flat, unarmed leaves. Plantless in full sun and in well-drained sandy or loamy soil, the more sun the plant receives, the more intensely colored the blue flowers will be. It is tolerant of a wide range of soil pH. This plant blooms from June through September and often profusely during the summer. It has ornamental interest in the colorful, spiny, thick, and white-veined leaves. Steel blue flowers with a ring of spiky ornamental bracts are useful for cutting or drying. Fresh flowers smell slightly of manure. Deadhead flowers to maintain a tidy appearance. Cut the plant back after flowering at the end of the summer. The plant sometimes self-seeds, slowly moving around the garden, but it rarely becomes a problem. Propagation is most easily accomplished by separating plantlets from the base of the parent plant. Sea holly is tolerant to poor or dry soils, and its spiny leaves are resistant to browsing by rabbits and deer. It withstands salty coastal winds and also does well in inland gardens. Use in small groupings in a cottage garden, rock garden, or as a specimen in a perennial border planting. Plant in a container or along a patio to enjoy the unusual blooms that are frequented by butterflies. I actually don't know if I would plant these in a container because they have a really deep taproot, and if you plant it in a container, that'll limit its ability to get the deep down water that it really wants. So it may not be as drought tolerant in a container, but it might be all right. Just make sure it's a big and deep container. Insects, diseases, and other problems. Aphids, slugs, and snails may appear. It is susceptible to root rot and leaf spot diseases. It needs dry soils, and in rich soils, these plants may grow leggy and topple over. And this is also the case with most of these species. If they get too much water, too much shade, or too rich of soils, they will either start sprawling, they'll get leggy, they'll topple, they won't be as strong. They actually need dry soils and full sun. Next up is Eryngium maritimum. Common names include sea holly, sea eryngio, or sea Eryngium. It's pretty much the same as most of the other species, just kind of ironic. It's a perennial species of flowering plant in the family Apiaceae, and it's native to most European coastlines. It resembles a thistle in appearance because of its burr-shaped inflorescences, which is flowers. Despite its common name, it is not a true holly, and despite its appearance, it is not a thistle. But it's an umbellifer. I haven't heard that word before. Umbellifer would be something with an umbel from the Apiaceae family. So this is off of Wikipedia, and I really love this description. It's got lots of big science words in it, so I'm going to go through this and define each science word as we go. And again, it describes most sea hollies, not just this one. but I just love all the word choices. Description. Sea holly is a glabrous, which means no hair or smooth. Intensely glaucous, which means it has a frosted look from like a powdery coating on the leaves. It is a succulent xerophyte. Xerophyte means it needs little to no water, with a deep, well-developed root system and a waxy leaf cuticle. We have cuticles on our nails. Plants have cuticles on their leaves. A cuticle is a thick layer of cells on the outside of the epidermis that protects it from heat and water loss. The leaves are stiff, spiny, and leathery in texture. The basal leaves, which measure about 5 to 15 centimeters in length, are rolled up when young and are palmately three-lobed at the base. The stem leaves are similar, but are smaller. Sessile, which means attached directly to the stem. There's no other stem or petiole between the leaf and the stem. And palmate. Palmate means it's shaped like a palm, meaning here's the stem it's coming from, or in this case, this is straight off of the stem of the plant, and it's shaped like a palm with all the veins radiating straight outward, not with a central vein that then goes outward. That's called pinnate. All leaves are characterized by thick margins, often with purplish veins, and the presence of stomata on both sides. Stomata are specialized cells that are they act like breathing holes for leaves. That's how they exhale oxygen and sometimes inhale carbon dioxide. It's a gas exchange, and it's also where a lot of water is lost in plants. But in this case, with most succulents, they're able to close their stomata when they don't want to lose water. That's one way that they conserve water and need less of it. The flowers are bluish-white and measure about 8 millimeters across, and the flower heads are about 1.5 to 2.5 centimeters. The bracts are spiny, and the brachioles are longer than the flowers. The flowers are attractive to butterflies, and it flowers from June through September. Next up is Eryngium aquaticum. This one is native to the eastern half of North America, and it's in USDA hardiness zone 6A through 8B. This information is from the North Carolina Extension Office. I absolutely love their plant database because it breaks everything down in this fantastic chart, and they have like a summary of the plant at the top, but all the information you need is on this page. Eryngium aquaticum has several common names. Stay with me here. Bitter snakeroot, corn snakeroot, Eryngio, Marsh Eryngo, Marsh Rattlesnake Master, and Snakeroot. The only ones I know of that's not just called sea holly. Marsh Eryngo is an herbaceous perennial wildflower that grows naturally in bogs, marshes, ditches, swamps, and wet areas, especially where limestone can be found near the surface. It can be found growing in coastal locations from New Jersey south to Florida and west to Mississippi. The species epithet is Latin for aquatic and refers to the plant's preferred habitat. So again, this one's native to the US. It tends to prefer marshes and wetter areas. It's not as xeric as the European varieties. Marsh Eryngo can grow in loamy soil in garden areas where water is adequately applied. It prefers wet soil, but will tolerate drier soils and, once established, is quite drought tolerant. It grows in full sun to part shade with a more sprawling habit and in fertile soil or in too much shade. Taller plants may need support. It naturalizes easily through seed. This plant does not tolerate root disturbance. The interesting foliage and flowers are great in cut and dried arrangements and can make this a specimen plant in your garden, or plant in groups in low spots near water gardens, rain gardens, ponds, or in borders. It is an excellent choice for pollinator and native gardens. Insects, diseases, and other plant problems. There are no serious issues. Only fertile soils can lead to taller plants that can sprawl. And then I do want to talk briefly about this one that I actually have here. This is Eryngium zabelii, big blue, which is ironic because it is blue, but it's not very big. Eryngium zabelii, commonly known as sea holly, is a hybrid perennial known for its striking iridescent blue flowers and architectural form. It's a popular choice for gardens due to its unique color, long-lasting blooms, and ability to attract pollinators. Now, the key word there is hybrid. So it's not native to anywhere because it's been hybridized between two other plants. I'm not sure which two other plants, but this one is one of the drought-tolerant varieties, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be hybridized from one of the European varieties. Its hardiness zone is 5 through 9. It prefers full sun and well-drained soil. It can tolerate poor, sandy, and even clay soils. Heavier soils, which is unlike most varieties of Eryngium, at least of the drought-tolerant ones. It's very drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, and attractive to bees and butterflies. Can you imagine being a deer and munching on this thing? Ouch! Not very tasty. Features tightly packed, spherical, cylindrical, thistle-like, egg-shaped flower heads with showy, spiky blue bracts. The flowers are a vibrant blue, often with an iridescent quality, and can be up to 4 inches wide. I assume that means the bracts are 4 inches wide. The flower head themselves is probably not. For the foliage, the plant has spiny, heart-shaped basal leaves and smaller, spiny, lobed stem leaves, typically green in color. This one typically grows 18 to 24 inches tall and wide. So this is actually a smaller Eryngium. Here's the thing. There's a lot of different varieties, as we've already discussed. Some of them get huge. I've seen one clump at one client's house. It grew in a colony, and this one was taller than me. It was at least 6 feet high. Absolutely stunning focal point for their yard. It was excellent. I didn't much care for cutting that back in the fall, but it sure made for a pretty spot in their garden. The flowers appear in early to midsummer, typically June through August. This cultivar, specifically Big Blue, a popular cultivar, Big Blue is particularly noted for its intense iridescent violet blue flowers and bracts, with the color extending to the stems and leaves. It is known for its upright, columnar growth habit and strong stems. The Big Blue cultivar is often recommended for coastal plantings due to its tolerance of salty winds and sandy soils. Growing tips: ensure it receives at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day for optimal flowering. Well-drained soil is essential. Water regularly, but be mindful not to overwater, as it prefers dry conditions. Deadheading spent flowers can help prolong the blooming period and prevent self-seeding. So to summarize, most varieties prefer a dry, well-drained soil, but the ones that are native to the United States actually need a little bit more moisture. They will be a little bit more drought tolerant than most plants once established, but they need regular water for the American varieties. As far as care, almost none. Deadheading, if you want the blooms to keep going and prevent self-seeding, you might want to cut it back, but I don't know that I have a preference yet of fall or spring. I have always cut it back in the fall, but that's the conventional gardener in me that tends to cut things back and keep them tidy for winter. I don't know yet if a stem nesting bee would use this one. It's worth a shot though. So go ahead and wait till spring to cut it back, and then cut it at about 12 to 18 inches high instead of all the way to the ground. Again, this plant is very resistant to deer and rabbits. This just would not be very good in a salad. It would be very uncomfortable. I did not find any information on specific species that these plants host, but generalist pollinators like bees and butterflies, of course, would enjoy the flowers for its pollen and nectar. Let's talk design. This is one that it doesn't matter what else is blooming because you're planting it for the foliage color more than the flower. One thing that I have found when switching to native pollinator and xeric gardens is that it is hard to find xeric plants that have color in their leaves other than green. So like my xeric bed, it's pretty because it's blooming, but it's all green. Everything over here is green. I've got a couple different colors in the sedums I've been able to find with different leaf colors. There's a volunteer guara in there. I don't even know where it came from, but it has a striking red leaf, and I'm very excited about that. I hope it reseeds like crazy. But it is challenging to get certain looks where you use different colors of foliage for your focal points. And so to find a blue foliage plant that's also drought tolerant is very exciting. So this again would just add interest all season because of the different foliage. The flowers are stunning as well, but it's the leaves that I'm actually planting this for. It also adds a different kind of texture that you're not likely to find in any other plants. As far as where to plant it, again, full sun, less water, depending on the variety, but a couple other cautions. Do not put this next to a walkway. You will regret that heartily. Take a lot. You and all of your guests will be cutting up your legs every time you walk past it. Do not plant this near some place that you walk or any place where you park your car, because it'll tear up your paint as well. This is one where you want to plant well away from where people are going to walk. It would make an excellent border along a fence line, especially if, deer are a problem in your area. It would help to deter them from coming in, unless they can jump over it, obviously. But a lot of deer, unless there's something valuable, they won't jump over something like this. But several varieties are also tolerant of salts. So if like road salts are a problem, or, in your driveway, the salt runoff, you could plant this far enough away that it won't scratch your car or scratch your legs. But this is one that you could plant next to an area where road salts are an issue. As far as where I'm going to plant this, right now in the early morning, I have some shade here, which feels really nice because it's been 90s or more degrees for the last week. It feels really good right now. But this gets full blazing hot sun from noon all through the rest of the day. And this tree is going to have to come down soon, unfortunately. It was planted here when I bought the house. The former owners were able to keep this stretch green with just lawn. I have no idea how they did that. I can barely get a hose over here, much less remember to turn it on every day. When I moved in and I turned this whole strip into a xeric bed, the trees started to suffer, and it really showed it this year. I actually did a whole video on this exact issue with my friend Alan, who's an arborist. He explained to me that plum trees need a lot of water, and they're actually not well suited for Spokane's climate if you're not going to water the heck out of it, which is why this tree is declining. So my choices were water the heck out of it all the time, like daily, which I'm not going to do, or be prepared to take it out because it is no longer in the right place. So I'm going to be taking out this tree, and I need to plant something to fill in this space, not to mention the design element that it is. It has beautiful purple leaves that I love over here because it's a color that isn't green. So I'm going to plant a few things to replace this. One of them is Eryngium, and then I'm going to plant a purple smoke bush to replace the purple that I'm losing, and a golden smoke bush, which was very exciting for me to find. Those were harder to find. Those are both native plants, native to my area, so they won't need nearly as much water as this does, but they will fill the void that I'm looking to fill when I remove this tree, because they'll add a different variety of color, something other than just green, to my xeric bed. All right, let's get planted. Most Eryngiums have a very deep taproot, which makes it infeasible to move them. So it's like a yucca. I tell my clients before I plant a yucca, you're sure you want this plant and you want it in this spot? Because once it's planted, you're married to it. It's easier to get a divorce than it is to move this plant once it's established. So make sure that wherever you plant it is where you want it. Water in the hole. I've only watered this bed once so far this year, and I think it was back in May. So I expect this soil to be very, very hydrophobic, which means it's going to repel water. Well, notice the water is not soaking in right now. It's going to take a long time before it does that. So I'll let this soak in, and I think I'm just going to water some other parts of my garden while I wait. The other reason that it's good to use a lot of water when planting, whether it's in the summer or not, is it helps to break up a pot-bound roof wall. These roots, they're not woody. They're actually kind of fleshy, but you're really thick, and these are going to go really deep. And this right here is why I would not recommend planting one in a container if you want it to be a perennial. Something that's not talked about enough, I don't think. It is better to cut a root ball in half with a knife than it is to plant something in the ground if it's pot-bound in a root-bound shape. We'll have a much healthier plant in the long run if you cut the roots open. But I don't think this one is quite that bad yet. You can see this. How tangled up all this is. I don't want to put it in the ground like that. So it's just like detangling my daughter's hair. Start at the bottom, work up. This one came out of the root ball and went up. This one is trying to tie itself into a braid. Some that are wrapped around here. Those are literally going to girdle over the years. It's better to lose a little bit of root mass than leave roots in bad positions. That's probably good. If this was a tree, I would keep going until there was no more soil on here and I could really see and inspect all of the roots. But this is an herbaceous perennial, so I'm not nearly as worried about it. Some of the soil back. And I'm going to have to come back in a few minutes after this soil drains so that I can make sure that it's still upright and all this, because there's so much water in this hole and it's not draining because of how hydrophobic it is. So we'll come back in a few minutes and look at it again. All right, so it's been a few minutes. The water has finally started to percolate, and this looks like it's about right. Put the rest of the soil back, and I'll give it one more water just to settle the rest of the soil in place. Then I'm going to put the mulch back, and then we're done. Oh, and I'll replace the tag. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video and you found it valuable. If you did, make sure to hit the like button so you can tell me you liked it. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down in the comments down below. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe so you get more gardening content like this every week in your video feed. Thanks so much, guys. I'll see you with a garden.